Hi there, I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor, and this is an exclusive chat right here on Moneycontrol. Now, 30th of June 2022. You don't know it just yet, but this is a milestone in India's space journey. This, as two Indian startups are headed to the space. Many have described it also as India's big SpaceX moment. All this possible because India now is investing big when it comes to ensuring that private activity increases in the space. Not very long ago, we had the Prime Minister himself launch a program, an independent body in space, which is going to look at exactly that. So on this iconic day, joining us for this exclusive chat is Mr. Pawan Goenka. Hello and welcome, sir. He's the chairman of InSpace and somebody who's been talked about so far about cars and now about space. There is lots to really decode in the middle, but what a day to be having this conversation with you. Welcome to talking to us here, sir, and welcome to Moneycontrol. Before we begin, I just want to give our viewers a quick glimpse into what exactly InSpace is all about.
21वीं सदी के आधुनिक भारत की विकास यात्रा में एक शानदार अध्याय जुड़ा है। इंडियन नेशनल स्पेस प्रमोशन एंड ऑथराइजेशन सेंटर यानी इन स्पेस के हेडक्वार्टर के लिए सभी देशवासियों को और विशेष करके साइंटिफिक कम्युनिटी को मैं बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। भारत की स्पेस इंडस्ट्रीज के लिए इन स्पेस का लॉन्च होना वॉच दिस स्पेस मोमेंट की तरह ही है।
All right, so watch this space, and you got to watch this space really to understand what the next big innovation is going to be about. Mr. Goenka, as we speak, a big milestone is really being unveiled in the country. By the time a lot of our viewers actually see this program and see this interaction, we would have achieved that. How proud are you really to be putting up two Indian startups in the space for the first time?
Well, it's certainly a sort of a milestone event for the Indian space sector. Clearly a big starting point for InSpace itself to be able to authorize two companies and launch their payloads on ISRO's C-53 PSLV launcher, which will happen in an hour or so. And it's a very big sort of starting point. And I would kind of call it as a small step in some sense, but something that could become fairly big for India as things progress, because the space economy is huge. Globally, the space economy is $400 billion. We're only $7 billion. And it's only private sector that can come in and really fully exploit the potential of space economy. And that's what makes today a very big day.
Right. And you're right about the economy. I'll come to that in a bit. But before I lose my viewers to understanding what is payload, what is satellite, let me just simplify it for everybody. A satellite is like a carrier. A payload is a parcel on that carrier, and that parcel has to be taken to space. And that is what is happening today. Two tech companies, two startups in India are sending their own payloads into space, and that's happening. Why is that huge? Because remember, India so far was doing it only through government organizations and government satellites were going. But at a time when space tourism is a reality of our times, what a year we've had. We've seen the biggest billionaires of the world actually travel to space. Then why not India? And that space that Mr. Goenka spoke about, only 2% share in the larger economy is something that India really needs to capture. Mr. Goenka, tell us, how will InSpace help this journey?
So let me first say the following for the benefit of viewers. It's a fact that most people do not know what role space plays in their life from the time that we wake up till the time that we go to bed, and even when we are sleeping. right? And the Honorable Prime Minister has been talking about it in everything that we do around, whether it's agriculture, weather forecasting, cyclone, fishery, communication, broadcasting, everywhere. Space is
GPS, reality of our
right
times.
now. What we're talking perhaps is going through space. So
Yeah.
it's something which people don't understand and don't know, that space is all around us. Okay, and India, another thing that people may not know is that India, in terms of technology in a space sector, is not far behind the leading players. In fact, it can rub shoulders with best in the world when it comes to space technology. So when you put the two together, and the fact that Indian space economy is less than 2% of the global economy, I think that's what brings that opportunity for us. Now, you started talking about various space objects, and again, in a very simplistic manner. And I've also learned only in the last 6 to 8 months, there is a rocket. The rocket's role is to launch a satellite. And rocket's life is only about 30 minutes, maybe not even that much. Right? And what it's doing is taking the satellite to space. And it could be various orbits, that LEO, MEO, different kind of orbits. We won't get into that. The satellite is simply rotating around the world, around the Earth for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. It keeps going round and round and round. Inside is a payload or multiple payloads. The payloads are the things that are doing the work. The payloads are receiving signal, transmitting signal, taking photographs, sending photographs, and that's what is giving us the data, the value that we know, that we finally use. Everybody knows about Mangalyaan, Chandrayaan. Those are scientific missions. Those missions give us the technical ability to do the commercial missions. And that's what now we are focusing on, that how do we convert our technology? How do we convert our know-how? How do we convert our infrastructure that we have in India? And you have a very beautiful picture right there, which is a very good launch pad that India has. And private sector's role is to come in and say, hey, ISRO, you have done a lot. Now help us to pick your technology, to pick your expertise, and see how we can enter the commercial stage of space and add value to it. And if you look world over, it is the private sector, whether you look in USA, you look in Europe, you look in many different countries. It's the private sector that has really moved the space economy forward, where the space agencies have worked on bringing science and technology. Space agencies have worked on sort of creating the infrastructure, and space agencies have done the initial work, and then private sector has come in. And that's what India is trying to do, which many countries have already done. And today, as you said, is the first step in that direction, and therefore it's a very big day.
Indeed, and just to like jog everybody's memory over there, in United States, for example, they had to shut down their space program, and that's where Elon Musk was actually born, and SpaceX was born. They said, we'll do something that the government perhaps does not or could not get resources to do, and that's the space we really want to enter. And you're so right when you say that people don't understand. There was a phrase I read somewhere, what on earth is the value of space?
Yes.
I don't think people understand that. And you gave some really nice examples, but I want viewers to understand this. You perhaps went from your home to office today looking at the GPS. That GPS is operating and giving you live location because there is a satellite in space. I'm doing this transaction and interaction online because there is some spatial element over there. In fact, talking about that, one of the big places where space can really enter is the internet service, something that the world is now talking about. We'll come to that, in fact, in a minute. But today is the day for startups, right? Today is the day for private companies to really dream big, to say that, sky is not the limit anymore. So India at the moment has a thriving startup network. The Prime Minister in his address also spoke about over 100 startups at the moment who are working in this sector.
Yes, so there are more than 100 startups in the space, but 2/3 of them were founded in the last 2 years. So if you go back in 2019, we only had about 30. So it really, the whole momentum of space startup is very new for India. The oldest startup perhaps is one of the companies that's going up to the Dhruv space. They were founded in 2012. And the other one, Digantra, which is going up today, is 2018 foundation. Now, I think it's very important to see that no one should be in a false sort of thinking that it'll all happen easily. It won't. Okay. Everybody talks about SpaceX, but one forgets what it took to bring SpaceX where it is today. What kind of
True.
money was pumped into it by the founder and by investors into it. What kind of
He
support
famously said he almost went broke.
Yes, what kind of support was given to SpaceX from NASA? All of these things we have to keep in mind. And then SpaceX is born 20 years later. So nobody should start counting their sort of return on investment immediately, saying, look, I'm in now, I'm going up today, pretty soon I'm going to be SpaceX. You won't. It will take time. But that's what we have to strive for. We have to say that why India should not have a SpaceX? India should. But we have to work towards it. We have to do everything that needs to be done to be successful. It's technology that's required, perseverance that is required, very important. And most important, Sonal, it requires investment. And this is where Indian startups right now have a disadvantage compared to what's happening in US. For example, the total investment so far made in Indian space startups so far, cumulative, is of the order of $100 million. USA gets 20 times that much in 1 year. Okay. So we also have to show some success. And one of the values of today's launch is that once investors start saying, yes, something now is happening. Yes, these startups are starting baby steps and trying to demonstrate that Indian startups can perform in space. Then money will start. And once money starts coming in, more and more effort can be put in by the startup. So this is a very important part that one should not forget. That to reach to that level of a SpaceX, a lot of money will be pumped in, which will have to happen by not the founders, because founders won't have that kind of deep pocket that the founder of SpaceX had. It will have to happen from investors who will have to come in and believe in the future of space, believe in the company, believe in the founder that they're investing in, and put in their money, and have the perseverance to wait for the return.
You're absolutely right, sir, there. But, it takes me to a very interesting statistic that I was reading. It said that 24% Indians want to work today in the space sector, which is more than any other country in the world. That basically talks about Indian youth's space aspirations, right? So in an environment like this, when a young boy sitting watching this interview perhaps, or watching a launch, or a young startup team sitting in their boardroom and watching this interview, if they are listening to you right now, what would you say is the path ahead for them, and how can InSpace help?
So first of all, Sonal, when you listen to the Honorable Prime Minister's speech that he made on 10th of June in Ahmedabad, he said that space activity is the pride of the nation. When a Chandrayaan goes up, the whole country comes to a standstill and watches those videos that come on our TV screen. And that's where you're seeing the interest in the Indian sort of youth to get into space activity in some way, shape, or form. Now, up until now, and this is the major change. This is the major change that's happening, and something that could become very big in few years. Up until now, the only thing they could do was join ISRO. That's all. There's no other option for sort of realizing the dream of playing in the space sector. You join ISRO and you retire from ISRO, which is good. ISRO is a very good organization, and really excellent scientists that I have interacted with there, and I'm proud of what ISRO has done. But that was the only option available to the youth. Now, with what is happening is there are two more options. One is to go out on your own and do something, become a startup, become a founder. And second is to work for the startups that have been set up by somebody, right? And the third thing, which is again in the private industry, one should keep in mind that it's not just a game of a startup. It's not only startups who are interested in space. We talk about startups quite a bit, but the large companies that have been up to now the vendors to ISRO are also getting into space technology. And you mentioned some time ago about the internet services. We'll come back and talk about that. But there are many large companies, and I won't name any right now, but there are many large companies that are looking at space in a very different way, saying, okay, I've supplied to ISRO for the last 20, 25, 30 years. Now, can I become the next ISRO? And what do I need to do? What do I need to do? So these people
Right.
have big pockets, deep pockets, right? So they are not going to be depending on the investors. Of course, they have to show return to their shareholders, but they're not depending on investors to necessarily bring in money. And they're also looking at space in a very different light and saying, can I really become a space player rather than being a space or a space vendor?
I see. Would you say that watching billionaires across the globe, Jeff Bezos, or watching Virgin Atlantic, watching Richard do this has sort of inspired confidence, and there is now a entire group of people saying, "Why not?" And the good part is there is a platform now. InSpace does exactly that. Give them an inlet into on that journey.
Yeah. So I would put it this way, that the world has made more billionaires in fields other than space. So it is not just the space billionaires that are creating that excitement. It is that space is exciting. Okay, so the space billionaire give you sort of a hope that if I got into space, it's not just because it's exciting. It could also make me money. It can
Makes
also make me rich.
commercial sense.
That is
Yeah.
not. I don't think that is the driver. I don't think that's the sole driver, because, as I said, that there are many more billionaires in other things than in space. And the main thing is that somebody mentioned the other day that if you were to ask school children what you want to do when you grow up, a disproportionate number will say that I want to become an astronaut. Right? How many astronauts do we need in the world? Just a handful. But everybody wants to become an astronaut because of the excitement that the space sector has. And that's what I'm really, I mean, you can feel the excitement that I have now, that by trying to bring in the private sector into space, we are opening up a whole new avenue, a whole new channel for our youth to live their dream, create an economic impact on the country, and change the lives of people. Because the impact on society of what can happen with the space is even a lot more than the impact on economic value, and the impact in terms of fulfilling your dream. Because India is still not at the cutting edge of space applications, cutting edge of data that we are able to get from space. There is a lot more that we can do, and that's a lot more that will happen now with the help of ISRO. We keep stressing that point. It will be always with the help of ISRO, at least for the next decade or so.
Right. But sir, give me an insight then on how exactly do you see, and which all sectors do you see getting impacted because of this opening? And I obviously want to talk about the thing that's got everybody excited, from Bharti to Reliance to the big giants in the country, all looking at the space internet service as well. So that's very, very exciting space. But apart from that, which all sectors do you see really opening up over here?
To say right now, when you look at the current thrust that the startups and other companies have, it is in what we call the upstream activity. That is building rockets, building satellites, launching satellites. And the two today, for example, are payloads going up for two different things. There are two companies working on making small rockets, small launch vehicles. There are companies that are working on making satellites, full-size satellites. But if you look at the space economy of $400 billion that we talk of it, the bulk of it sits in applications, not in upstream. And what we need to kind of channel our energy of startups is not to just look at what one would call the glamorous part of space, which is going up in your rocket or take your satellite up there and orbit it for 20 years, but the application part of space, because that's the one where the biggest value is, and that's the one where biggest impact will come on the lives of our people. Right? The impact doesn't come from satellite going up. Impact comes from the data that comes down, and what do we do with that data? Right? So today, if you were to look back 20 years ago, many of the viewers probably cannot look back 20 years ago because they're too young at that time. But if you look at 20 years ago and look at what kind of weather forecasting we did, I remember Akashvani when I was a kid. आज भारत के कुछ हिस्सों में बारिश होने की संभावना है. That was a weather forecast, right? Today you can pinpoint it exactly what will happen.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of thing, we have moved quite a bit, but not yet at the cutting edge. And we need to do that, and that's what is going to make a huge difference. So to me, that's very important. But if you were to look at economic value creation, I think India can do two things that is not happening today. India can become a manufacturing hub for space objects. India doesn't have the ability right now to the level that is required, but I'm hoping the startups will create that ability to be a manufacturing base for different space objects, for ground stations, for terminals, for satellites, for payloads, all of that. And that's a huge market if you can do it for the world. If you do it just for India, it's a small market. If you can do it for the world, it's a huge market. India can become a launch pad for the world, right? Our launching costs are lower, can become even further lower when the volume goes up. Can India be launching satellites for others? So that's other activity that we can look at. So I would look at three areas: the application, the manufacturing hub, and the launch pad.
Right. So, but everything that you're talking about is really going to come down to the basics of how good the investment is going to be. How close are we to a new space policy? What about FDI investments? How exactly are you accelerating that?
So see, fortunately, Government of India right now is open to look at anything that needs to be looked at to enable the private sector to come into space. So the new policy that we've been talking about for quite some time, and it's now around the corner, removes almost all the restriction that private sector had in space participation. It almost opens up the door of ISRO wide open to say you come in and you tell me what you want me to help you with, right? It will enable the technology that ISRO has, which today is used only by ISRO, enable the technology to be transferred to the private sector and come and use it. For example, in making a satellite, there's something called a bus. Okay, bus is in auto industry we call it platform. Okay, that's a platform on which the satellite is built. Now that platform, which has been built by ISRO over years of experimentation, is now available to private sector to just license from ISRO and build their own satellite. Right now, this will probably just a matter of weeks when we'll start giving that license to private sector. So that's the kind of enablement that's happening. So that's on the policy side. On the FDI side, again, we are going to be looking at any constraint or concern that private sector has. We haven't started that work yet, but we will look at any constraint that private sector has and see if there's anything that needs to be done in FDI policy to allow investment to come in. Because as we said earlier, that investment is very important, and unfortunately, a lot of investment comes from outside India on all startups, not just in space startup. And therefore, we have to enable that investment to happen. At the same time, we have another objective that we need to be able to do value addition in India and not simply be taking technology out and doing something somewhere else. So we have to meet this twin objective of bringing investment in and ensuring that we are doing value addition in India in terms of economic impact, positive impact that space sector can have on India.
But give us a hint, sir. Give us a glimpse of what exactly the policy could say further. I know FDI investment has been talked about quite a bit. You're saying it will be all encompassing and all welcoming, but some tools that will be used for it?
It's a bit premature, Sonal, because we are going to be starting the consultation process soon. There have been approaches that have been made to us, to Department of Space, to InSpace, that we need to make the FDI policy more enabling for investment. So we are starting the consultation process. I think it's premature for me to give, as you said, any hint of what is being thought about.
Okay, so we shall connect soon once that consultation process is over to understand more from you. But sir, another concern, perhaps when it comes to scientists and minds really working in the sector, has been the brain drain that India has had. What will you be doing to ensure that this stays back in India? Because talent is everywhere. But to ensure that there is enough infrastructure, there is enough merit in them staying back and working for India and being Team India? How will you ensure that?
See, if you look at ISRO, that's a very good example of how, when you give challenging, exciting assignments to our engineers and technologists, they don't want to go abroad. ISRO probably hires the best talent, engineering talent, and I would say probably 80-85% retire with ISRO. Right? They don't get tempted to go to other countries and earn in dollars. And that's only because of the kind of work that happens in ISRO. And I'm just absolutely impressed, as I said earlier, with the kind of work that happens in ISRO. And also the whole culture that ISRO has, the open culture that ISRO has, whereby even junior most engineer gets, as we say, a seat on the table. To be able to voice his opinion on any mission that is happening. And that kind of open culture, the exciting work is what we need. It's not just about giving more money to an engineer. Of course, money matters. I'm not saying money doesn't matter, but these are the kind of things that attracts people. And when you add in top of that, the excitement of working in the field of space and the pride that it brings in you, I think it's a matter of creating more and more education opportunities for space technology. And in fact, that's one of the areas InSpace is working on, where we are creating space courses. And we'll launch the first set of space courses in the next semester and 2 IITs, hopefully. So give more education. We are creating engineering student competition for building a CAN satellite, which we'll do once a year, to again bring in more excitement about space. Something similar we had in auto industry with Baha, SA India. So therefore you create that excitement in colleges and say, I want to go into the space industry. I want to work in space, right? And fortunately, India also has today a fair number of retired ISRO experts who the youngsters can tap into.
Yeah.
And mentor them.
Right.
And one of the things InSpace will do is we are going to be publishing a directory of experts who are hired from mostly from ISRO and are available to consult with or mentor, handhold the young startups.
So what I'm understanding from you as a spectrum of InSpace is creating space literacy of sorts, excitement at the grassroots level in students, then college students, young entrepreneurs, and then giving them a platform of sorts to say, come, make use of the brilliant minds that you have. I also read that spaces that ISRO has that go up to the worth of some 25 crore are now open to be used up by these entrepreneurs to come and check it out, find out how it works, use their technology, and then sort of catapult further. So this entire ecosystem is what InSpace will really be providing, which is really great. I love how throughout the interview you kept using these auto analogies on describing how things go. So I want to understand, as we conclude, Mr. Goenka, what has been your personal mission, as they say, on this, from making, like I said, from making the best vehicles on the road to now working with entrepreneurs to generate the best satellites that go into space. What's excited you about this?
Well, basically the whole thought that InSpace can potentially create a new industry almost in India. A private industry of space entrepreneurs, which doesn't exist in any sort of measurable manner as of now. So whole thought of saying that can we take a space sector economy of $7 billion to some number, 30, 35, $40 billion. I mean, that thought is what kind of got me back again into working almost full time to say, can I, my learning of automotive, my learning of managing large projects, my learning of creating entrepreneurial mindset within a company, can that learning somehow help? And I guess if I succeed even to a small extent, that will be a good way for me to say, look, I know more than auto. So far, all my life has been auto, and my wife always says, can you talk something other than auto? I have auto over the last 40 years. And so now she
So
says,
now are you talking space to her?
I'm talking space with her, and she's very happy that I don't mention Scorpio and words like those at home.
All right. And does Mr. Goenka also dream of getting inside one of those suits and being in space himself one day?
I think there is an age restriction in that somewhere. So I probably will not.
So you did think about it and you did find out.
I probably will not qualify. I would love to, but I probably will not qualify. But
All
maybe
right.
you would. Maybe you would.
Sorry?
So you should think about. Maybe you would qualify, so you should think about it.
I'll take you up on that offer very, very soon. On that note, Mr. Goenka, this has been a fascinating discussion, and there's so much to look forward to when it comes to what InSpace is doing and overall how this industry is expanding in India. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again on this big milestone. All right, so that was Mr. Pawan Kumar Goenka in his new avatar, chairman of InSpace. For more details on what exactly InSpace is doing and many more such exciting interviews, stay tuned to Money Control.